This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Hey, I don't know about you, Tom, but I, as an Australian, definitely feel safer when I wake up and read the headline, "Is Australia at war?" Yes.
If you want the doll for life, free marijuana, vote Greens.
There's a bunch of ratbags and a bunch of idiots, and I got no time.
A bunch of idiots.
The Greens get way too good a run in the Australian media, way too free a run.
Frankly, I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger.
All right, it's Sunday, March 15th, 2026, the year of our Lord. This is Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia. It is not an official Greens Party podcast, Greens Political Party podcast. It's produced by Michael the Griffin, who we may well be talking to in a little bit for relevant reasons. I'm Tom Ballard, coming to you from Gooditch country. Hope you're doing well. I'm delighted to be joined by our guest Emerald for this week. She's here to help me appeal to the youth, all right? She's a cool Twitch streamer who posts about Australian politics. Elise Turnbull, hello, welcome to the show.
Hello. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you. Thanks for being here. First off, I'm sorry, I do have to ask, are you any relation to Malcolm? What's the deal there?
Not at all. Before I knew who he was and what he was relevant to, I used to tell people in primary school that he was my dad. But then my real dad one day came to pick me up and people were very confused.
That's not Malcolm Turnbull at all.
No, not at all.
Okay, you don't share a name. I assume you don't share politics with Malcolm Turnbull either?
No.
Okay. Could you tell the good people a little bit about yourself, the kind of stuff you post about, and where you place yourself on the political spectrum?
I've been streaming for about 4 years, but I've only been covering politics for about a year and a half. I kind of started doing it in the lead up to the 2025 election when I realized I didn't know anything. And so I decided to invite people along and learn with me. And so I sort of spent every day in the lead up to the election learning about everything that I thought was relevant. So climate change, nuclear, renewables, all the different political parties, the voting system, how our parliament works. And people came along with me. It kind of like grew from there.
Yeah. That's great.
That's what I do. I consider myself a progressive, pragmatic reformist in terms of my politics.
Interesting. I can fuck with that. I can get on board there. Now, Twitch, I don't know anything about Twitch, I'll be honest. I know that people primarily initially people play video games on Twitch, right? And then people watch along and then all these different streamers come around. And of course, the most famous is Hassan Piker in the US, who is sort of massive, big leftist guy who seems to have been the left-wing Joe Rogan or whatever the hell people are talking about. Generally speaking, how would you describe the politics of Twitch? Is it very diverse? Are the people all over the place? Is it a lot of angry young men who like Trump and hate wokeness? What's the general Twitch vibe, would you say?
I think politics on Twitch is very American. So you get a mix of what's going on over there. But then, of course, you've got Hassan, who is like more left-wing than your average American political person. Mm-hmm. You are right that Twitch used to be a gaming platform. I would say that now politics has kind of taken over that position. I think politics is the new thing. I think people identify with it and are understandably involved because of what's going on in America and all around the world. Getting the young people involved in politics and interested in politics is a very, very good thing.
And making being left-wing cool. This has always been my big project. I think Chapo Trap House or whatever, I'm like, oh, these people are like super funny. They're very, very smart. They're self-aware. They're self-deprecating, but they're also, I don't know. It's just so nice to hear a bunch of young, mainly men, just talk about how, like, don't be a fucking dick and don't support war and America sucks and being left-wing is good. And it's okay to want good things for yourself and your fellow citizens. And being a lefty is, it's not a lame or worthy or annoying. It's actually the correct moral position to take. And you could do that while still being funny and having fun, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's all just about caring for your fellow people, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when I'm watching any clips of a Twitch stream, I just can't deal with like you're talking and then all the comments are appearing on screen next to you as people are commenting about what you're talking about. Or Hassan always seems to have like 6 different windows open at the same time. I can't deal with it. I don't know
about his chat. His one just flies by, but it's I stream, so I'm the one on video and then everyone comes along in chat and then I interact with the chat. It's sort of, I really like it because I'm learning with a whole group of people. And so imagine if you're having a conversation with a mate about something that you've been learning, they might be able to tell you like one thing that they know about that topic that you wouldn't otherwise know. But I have access to like 50, 60, 70 people who are giving me all this information like that one friend would. Yeah. And so we can just have like a big group session of learning, and people learn off me and I learn off them. It's fantastic.
An orgy of learning. Fantastic.
An orgy of learning.
Now, I know that Friendly Geordies is a big fan. He loves this show as well.
Massive.
Not posting so much anymore after, his house was firebombed, but he seemed like he was under quite serious threat for some pretty serious figures. Still doesn't excuse him being a bit of an asshole and being wrong about a bunch of stuff. What's your beef with Friendly Geordies? How did all that go down?
Someone told me, one of my Twitch streamer friends told me that I should just start uploading my political clips to Instagram. And so I started doing that. And it just so happened to be Friendly Geordies that I was talking about at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect anything to come from it. I thought it was going to take a while for me to build up short form following. But he pretty much immediately made a video about me, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And it was over the most boring topic. It was over negative gearing and the capital gains tax discount.
Hell yeah, dude.
And so when people come up to me and they're like, I see Friendly Geordies hates you. Why does he hate you? I'm like, it's because he said that negative gearing can't be done by Labor because they tried and failed in 2 elections, and then their eyes just gloss over.
Great.
But yes, he's not a fan.
He's not a fan. Yes. Oh well, Jordan. I did notice in one of your videos about him, you said, please delete cringe millennial voices. Now, I don't know if I do voices, but I am terrified of being a cringe millennial, so I'm sorry if that comes up during this episode. But do you feel vindicated or excited that it looks like finally the Labor Party, now they've won 94 seats for the love of fuck, and we're living in the Labor Party imperium. It appears going into this forthcoming budget may actually be doing something to reduce the capital gains discount and slightly restricting negative gearing. These are the rumors and the reports we're getting.
They've got the mandate. They have the political capital. I don't think they would be talking about negative gearing and the capital gains tax discount if they weren't interested in doing something about it. I think they think it's poison, electoral poison. And I feel like they're asking for permission to do something. And so it feels like a now or never situation.
Yes, well, we're going to get a Senate inquiry report out in this coming week, I think, about that, which of course lays the foundations and the arguments that is the kind of thing you do when you're preparing to make those kind of moves in the budget. So I guess we'll wait and see on that front. And finally, just before we move on, I mean, generally the Greens, Australian Greens, what do you reckon of the Greens and how they're travelling or their broad political project?
Obviously a bit of a heartbreak after the last election outcome. I think the Greens have always been and are a pretty solid foundation for the left wing in Parliament, left wing representation across the country in Parliament. I was actually got some Nick McKim posts coming up on my reels yesterday, and I didn't know much about him, but he's on fire. He is doing some really good stuff. I really like his attitude.
Oh, he's great. Yes. Oh, yes. He's doing those Fortnite videos, which are very popular, but is also
yes,
at the moment.
I saw those too.
Yes, talking to Gary Stevenson.
I want to play Fortnite with him on Twitch.
Okay, sure. I could probably arrange that. I don't want to brag, Elise, but a pretty big deal. I could probably set that up, but we'll see how you go. I'll let you know. Anyway, it is great to have you on the show. This week, there is so much to talk about it. We'll do our best. There is, of course, the ongoing war that is happening. Collective self-defense, whatever the fuck that means. We got a very comforting report on the Robo-debt scandal. Justice has been served. I think we can all agree there. Everyone can rest easy. Don't worry, your government cares about you, and all the people who have done wrong things are being held to account. And I know you read the Liberal Party election review. We didn't discuss it on the show because, once again, the war broke out. I know you've read it. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it. I want to hear what you said or what you found out when you were reading that particular election review. And there was also a piece about the Greens election review, which we haven't talked about on the show at all. So we're going to try our best to cover all that. Quick shout out to all the new patrons for the show. We love you, Danger Dogs. Kate, Oliver B, Maureen, Jacinta, Dr. Butcher, Gary, Jackie, and Beck Free. I hope that isn't Beck Freedom, who helped organise one of the March for Australia rallies. As far as I can tell, she's a terrible white supremacist. I assume you're not Beck Free. Thank you for supporting our show. Our latest episode for patrons only. We get a bonus episode every fortnight if you're a patron, is with Paddy Manning, who wrote the book Inside the Greens. We're wrapping up our series with him. That's a great conversation. Get the bonus content, support the show. We love you. We love Danger Dogs. And two other quick little shout outs. Thanks to everyone who came out to Adelaide to see me at the Fringe Festival with my show and in my hometown of Warrnambool. I love all Danger Dogs in the audience. My new stand-up show, Be Funny Challenge Impossible, is at the Canberra Comedy Festival this coming week for 2 shows only, then at the Melbourne Comedy Festival for a whole month. All the details at comedy.com.au. Finally, speaking of South Australia, shout out to all the people heading to the polls. Good luck to the South Australian Greens. People listening to this show know what to do. Vote correctly, please. Don't vote for Cory Bernardi is my very strong advice. And there's a real chance the Greens could massively increase their representation in the upper house and potentially win their first ever lower house seat in this election. And again, provide some resistance to the Malinauskas Imperium that seems to be taking over South Australia. So good luck, everyone.
Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? How would we call it?
Collective self-defense.
Why, any other word would smell as sweet.
All right. War, eh? That's still going.
War. What is it good for?
Well, no. Collective self-defense. What is it good for? We'll get to that in a moment. What has been your take on this absolutely developing horror show that we're seeing play out in the news day after day, Elise? You have kind of a pro-war vibe. I assume you're in support of this.
Do I got a pro-war vibe? Do like a bit of a fight? I mean, I think what we're seeing from Labor is a classic leave your spine at the door move.
Mm-hmm.
Eager to jump on supporting America, even though they're doing allegedly illegal war.
It's definitely illegal. You can safely say this is definitely illegal war. People aren't even trying to defend it anymore. Yeah. Everyone knows this is an illegal
war. I did think the wholly defensive or the defensive excuse or reason was pretty loaded, and I was interested to look it up, and so I did, and I found that Bush, when he was sending American troops into the Gulf War under Operation Desert Shield, used the excuse wholly defensive to justify sending troops in. And so really I feel like what that indicates is saying it's defensive means nothing. Historically, history tells us that.
Well, no. I mean, Israel has been carrying out a genocide against Palestine all in the name of self-defense. Our army is all looked after the Minister for Defense. The only good thing that Donald Trump has done is rename the Department of Defense the Department of War, because at least it's fucking honest, right?
Bit transparent. Yeah, they've just dropped dropped the mask.
I appreciate that. It's just straight up and embracing that label, I suppose. Yes, defense seems to get cover pretty much everything. And indeed, preemptive strikes. We're getting these preemptive strikes logic as well. The idea that we had to strike them first because they were definitely about to strike us, even though the case for that is collapsing everywhere, right? The idea that this was all about ending Iran's nuclear program, that reasoning seems to be disappearing. We've got Democrats coming out of security briefings in the US saying that's just not on the list of outcomes for this whatsoever, and neither is regime change. So who the hell knows what they're going for? I mean, this week Trump said, I think the Iran war is pretty much complete. And I want to give a shout out to Even Loves Worf on Twitter, who did quote tweet that saying, declare war on Iran, bomb a bunch of kids, kill the supreme leader, get supreme leader's son put in charge, globally raise oil prices. Nothing has changed except a bunch of dead kids, declare victory. And I really think that
Pete Hegseth immediately say that it was only just the beginning on like the same day.
And then Trump said, well, it's both. The end of the war. It's both the beginning and the end of the war. It's a Aurora Borealis or whatever the hell that is, the thing that leads it. Now, in Australia, the question seems to be, and I think this is a key question, whenever you're running a country, are you at war or are you not? Right? Penny Wong has previously ruled out Australia putting troops on the ground in Iran or taking any offensive action against Iran. Again, we support the initial offensive strike. We totally support that. But also we don't want anything to escalate, and we actually don't want to be involved militarily in any way with further offensive strikes. This week, the government announced it is sending an RAAF E-7A Wedgetail surveillance aircraft, 85 personnel, and a supply of air-to-air missiles to the United Arab Emirates. And in Parliament this week, Greens leader Larissa Waters asked what I think is a perfectly reasonable question. Here's what happened.
Is Australia at war?
Thank you, Senator Waters.
What I have made clear publicly when I've been asked that is that we are engaged in collective self-defence. And the reason we are doing that is that we know that the Gulf countries have been the subject of attacks from Iran. countries that have not participated in strikes against Iran, but have themselves been attacked with a barrage of missiles and drones, including civilian targets, civilian infrastructure, and areas where Australians are present. And from the government's perspective, our obligation, our first priority is to do all we can to keep people safe. That is why we have announced the deployment that we announced yesterday. The purpose of that deployment is to help the UAE and other Gulf nations defend themselves, and in doing so also help the Australians who are resident.
Please resume your seat. Senator Waters.
A point of order on relevance. Are we at war?
The Minister is being relevant to your question, Senator Waters. Minister Wong. Order.
And I responded by being clear that we are engaged in collective self-defence with the Gulf nations, and I explained why that is in our national interests and why civilians are at risk, that we are working to protect civilians.
2 questions for you, Elise. What did you make of that defence? And are we at war? Over to you.
I'm not going to lie, I had to listen to Penny Wong's video statement there like 3 times over to understand exactly what she was saying. And even at the end of it, my question was exactly what Larissa Waters says. Are we at war?
Are we at war? I love interrupting with a point of relevance. Answer my fucking question.
Answer my question, yes or no? Are we at war?
Yes or no?
Still unable to answer the question. But my understanding is that we are at war. We're involved in the war. A lot of people are calling it already World War III. And I'm kind of worrying to know that Australia is so eager to jump in, like straight off the deep end right at the beginning, for seemingly no reason.
No. Well, also, we want to have it both ways. We want to jump in, definitely show our support for the US, but our government can't even be upfront with the Australian people and say, yes, we are at war. Anyone with eyes can see sending military personnel to the Middle East in the current context after saying that we support the initial strikes that kicked all this shit off clearly means we are involved in the war. We are at war.
Sisters over in New Zealand didn't support it. We don't have to support it. We could do exactly what they did.
Yes. Well, I mean, we touched on this briefly on last week's episode. I mean, my cynical response to that would be that Labor is happy to oppose wars when they're in opposition.
Yeah,
but when you're in government, then you've got all the pressure of the US imperial state and you've got to jump when they tell you to. There was an article in the ABC from Stephen Jedgetts, which sort of answered this question pretty clearly. Are we at war? It's a reasonable question for Australians to ask, given the government is sending one of its most sophisticated reconnaissance planes, crewed by dozens of military personnel, to the Middle East. And according to legal experts, the simple answer is yes. Australia is at war. This might surprise casual observers of the Prime Minister's press conference this morning. When Anthony Albanese faced the press pack, he cast the deployment as a purely defensive action, saying Australian military assets wouldn't take any offensive action against Iran. We are not protagonists. What we are doing is providing for defence of the UAE and of Australian citizens. Professor Don Rothwell from the Australian National University, a preeminent expert in international law, says the divide between attack and defend has little legal force and shouldn't obscure the weight of the government's decision. Even though our contribution might be small scale, we are now a party to the conflict, he told the ABC. That applies irrespective of a distinction Australia may make between engaging in offensive and defensive conduct. Any Australian personnel committed to this wedge-tail aircraft will be considered a combatant under international humanitarian law, which means they are a legitimate target from the other combatants, which in this case, let's face it, is the Iranians. I mean, I don't know if you followed much about the submarine story last week. So the idea was that there were 3 Australians on this submarine as they attacked an Iranian frigate, sunk that, left the survivors to die, by the way, in contravention of all international law and maritime law. There was reporting there were Australians on there. Australians wouldn't give a straight answer. Then eventually they confirmed, yes, there were 3 Australians, but they weren't involved in the offensive attack. And apparently...
Yeah, they were on recess.
Apparently they were sent to Betty Buys. Now, I don't know, maybe that's true, but it doesn't matter. You're an Australian on the submarine that just attacked Iran. So if the submarine that they're on is attacked, Australians don't get out of that, okay? They go down with the whole ship like everybody else, And those 3 Australians will, be considered killed in this war. No doubt the Australian government would be outraged. Everyone would talk about, oh my God, Iran's so evil for this. But I'm like, they're on the battlefield, man. They are participating in this goddamn war.
In the submarine, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Even if you're on break, I don't know, if you have like one gunner who's on break and one gunner who's not, are they both complicit or only the guy who's shooting the missiles, I'm
sure they sent a message saying, hey, can just the people who were participating in the strike leave the submarine now, please? You stay on. Anyone who wasn't involved, anyone who's on break.
Just pop the hatch and go for a swim.
Had this piece in the conversation as well. Even though the E-7A Wedgetail has a clearly defensive purpose, the deployment could still be seen from the Iranian perspective as support for the US-Israeli air offensive. In an indirect way, it could help the US. The RAAF deployment will reduce the need for the US to help defend the UAE, potentially freeing up US forces to strengthen its attacks on Iran. The Australian government's messaging appears aimed at trying to avoid people drawing this conclusion. This is what David Shoebridge has been saying in Parliament, saying the reason Australia is doing this, yes, there was a written request from the UAE, but we're really doing this to support the US war machine. You can free up US military assets so they can continue their illegal offensive strikes on Iran, killing thousands of people, hundreds of people, illegally invading Lebanon now. Israel is illegally invading Lebanon. Like, it's just a fucking shit show, Elise. How old are you, can I ask? Do you mind me asking?
28.
You're 28, so you were born in, late 90s. Okay.
1997, yeah.
Sure. So for the vast majority of your life, this country has been involved in these illegal, insane, it's just been a reality of your life and most of my life as well, really, of just this background noise that, the Western countries just bomb the shit out of the Middle East. It never works out well. And then we tear our hair out when we say, why do these people hate us? Why do we have all these problems and this destabilization?
It seems to be as well, always running on the excuse of going in defensively. I'm pretty sure that was Australia's excuse when we went to the Vietnam War as well, as we went in,
of course,
defensively. But from there, one, it doesn't matter in the eyes of the person that you're being defensive against.
Nope.
They just see you as getting involved in the war, another person on the opposition. But then it just becomes offensive and just a war anyway. You're getting involved for no reason because you want to support the US. I don't know. It's just words coming from Labor to justify it to the masses.
Yeah, this incredible example of that kind of national security, defense, safety logic, right? So Penny Wong is up there saying, hey, we need to send people there because Australians are in danger. And it's like, why are they in danger, Penny? What caused this conflict to break out? Well, surprise, surprise, it's the aggressive strikes by the US and Israel, which your government supports, that has unleashed this entirely predictable response from Iran, and that's why people are now unsafe. The West's inability to process the idea that it is our actual aggressive military actions, which is what is putting us in danger, which actually makes us less safe as both people in the Middle East themselves and as citizens, potential victims of terrorist attacks across the Western world, which we've seen over the past 25 years. Just the inability to learn that lesson.
Hey, I don't know about you, Tom, but I, as an Australian, definitely feel safer when I wake up and read the headline, is Australia at war? Yes.
It is comforting.
It is.
All right. The Greens, again, have been a fantastic and staunch anti-war voice, which I appreciate. On Wednesday, they introduced a bill that will require both houses of parliament to vote before the Australian Defence Force can be sent overseas to engage in warlike actions. War power reform bills have been proposed by the Greens for over 20 years and have been routinely rejected by the Liberal and Labor parties. With Australia being sent into another illegal US war, this is a Greens press release, by the way, without any democratic debate or input, the Greens today are reintroducing the Defence Amendment Parliamentary Approval of Overseas Service Bill, introduced by Senator Jordan Steele-John in 2020. Apparently, there's a 2023 poll that found 90% of Australians support war powers reform to enforce a parliamentary vote before the deployment of troops. I mean, this is, again, another egregious thing of this debate is the government doesn't even want to debate about it. They don't want to go on the record. They want to avoid as much public debate about the question of committing our troops to this illegal war as much as possible. So, good on the Greens for introducing this bill. I don't think it's going to pass. Is that another, great idea, never going to happen kind of thing?
I think so. But I mean, at least we can get some Nick McKim snippets of him being against the war. That stuff works. I'm telling you, he's powerful. He's got some good words. I don't know if you saw the clip of him saying it was shameful and embarrassing that we're getting involved in this war the way that we are.
I mean, aren't you embarrassed? This is the guy you've hitched us to at the hip. I mean, he is a fascist, war criminal, fantasist, and you have hitched our country at the hip to him through AUKUS, through your obsequious toadying of the war criminals Trump and Netanyahu and their illegal war. It is humiliating, it's embarrassing, and it's degrading for our country.
I agree. Like, his passion is there and I feel it. He's so right. It is embarrassing.
I mean, it's hard to tell anecdotally. I saw one people post like never voting Labor again, posted that clip that you're referring to saying, yeah, never Labor again, definitely voting Greens next time. I mean, I think for a lot of Labor hacks out there, I think the worst outcome of this war is the slow realization that the Greens might actually be right about something and might adopt the correct position.
That is horror.
And yeah, that is
the Labor
like
voters.
end of the world stuff for a Labor hack. I mean, look, this is obviously a developing story. There have been so many more horrifying updates. We got confirmation that it was a US Tomahawk strike that killed that struck that school's girls, killing at least 165 schoolgirls. All this bullshit misinformation that was Iran rocket has just now been thoroughly dismissed by extensive reporting. Of course, that's a war crime. It's horrific. The US will never apologize. No one actually cares.
Wasn't it a double tap as well?
Double tap strike, baby, based on outdated information, apparently, because of course it's been a school for a very long time, not a military base. Just an outrage that, again, I haven't seen any Australian politician be asked about or be held to account for, even though they fully just support these strikes. And this is one of the first things that happened once those strikes were initiated. And then the most outrageous example of the government trying to get all these kudos points by rescuing the Iranian women's soccer team and granting them asylum when they're in the country. And again, I'm all for that if they choose to do that. Some women elected to go back home because they've got a very complicated relationship. They've got family back in Iran, et cetera, et cetera. But going there, getting the photo opportunity, hey, Iranian women's soccer team must absolutely be safe. At the same time, rushing through legislation to cancel valid visas from Iranians who are going to come to Australia in case they come here and claim asylum. I mean, like just you could not write this shit, right? And just, again, remember the Australian government started this by saying we stand with the Iranian people in their fight against oppression, and yet we'll cancel the visas of people who might come here and seek safety from the very regime that they hate so much and that they're currently bombing.
Well, wasn't this like a phone call that Trump got from, that Albanese got from Donald Trump? Was about the Iranian soccer team.
This is what Albanese was very cagey about the contents of that particular call, but it did certainly seem to be, yes. I think some right-wing people in America will start posting about it. That gets the attention of Trump, and he says, hey, I have a puppet down there. I'll tell him what to do. Ah, boy.
It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the Nacc.
The Nacc?
The Nacc. It's a rare condition.
Can he lead a normal life?
No.
No!
There. Don't blame yourself.
All right, turning to the other war that the Labor government likes to fight, that's the war on poor people. This week, we got the National Anti-Corruption Commission inquiry into corruption relating to the robo-debt scandal. Now, I'm sure people listening to this are familiar, but just to refresher, robo-debt was an unlawful, automated government scheme that used an income averaging algorithm to incorrectly demand hundreds of thousands of welfare recipients pay debts they did not owe. About 443,000 welfare recipients received false debt notices, with some told they owed the government tens of thousands of dollars. The scheme caused significant distress to many. That's an understatement, and was linked to multiple suicides. One of those victims was our very own producer, Michael the Griffin. I think we'll get on the call in a moment. But let me just summarize these findings that we got. The Royal Commission referred 6 people to the Nacc, the National Anti-Corruption Commission. This was the sealed chapter of the Royal Commission report. And this week, the Nacc's inquiry, their findings were released to the public. Apparently, the inquiry was called Operation Myrtleford. I don't know why they give these things such names, but there you go. So we got the inquiry, and oh man, the flames of justice have been applied to these evil people that partook in this particular scheme. The inquiry found 2 people engaged in corrupt conduct
and cleared former Prime Minister Scott Morrison and 3 others. The watchdog found that ex-Departmental General Manager of Business Integrity Mark Withnell carried out corrupt conduct, having intentionally misled the Department of Social Services when preparing a cabinet submission in 2015. Apparently, he did nothing to ensure that Cabinet was properly informed of the averaging component of the robo-debt measure. Department Deputy Secretary Serena Wilson was also found to have carried out corrupt conduct by misleading the Commonwealth Ombudsman during an investigation in 2017. While Withnell and Wilson are found to have engaged in serious corrupt conduct, they will not be referred to face criminal charges.
Justice.
Tastes like sweet, sweet justice. The Nacc said there was insufficient admissible evidence and did not consider it appropriate to refer them. Scott Morrison, former Department Secretary Catherine Campbell, and public servants Catherine Hulbert and Annette Mussolino have all been cleared of corruption by the watchdog. The report found that Morrison's failure to detect misleading information was not in breach because he was expected to rely on the advice of his department. Yeah. Seemed like justice to you, Elise, or what do you reckon?
I've seen Scott Morrison patting himself on the back. Also, I did see some paragraphs in that report that was explaining why he wasn't responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it was like truly baffling. There was one that was saying that he may have been in a position to know, but it was essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, okay, but essentially he's a good guy. If he had known, he would have come clean about it, right?
Right. Surely.
That's essentially what they were saying. And it read as wholly unprofessional for some sort of anti-corruption report to say and just speculate on the good and honest nature of Scott Morrison. And that's why he couldn't have known, right?
Yeah, really, really taking the benefit of the doubt to the nth degree here. I mean, I really recommend people check out Jeremy Poxon. Jeremy Poxon, from previously of the Australian Unemployed Workers Union, these days with the Anti-Poverty Centre, a tireless advocate on this stuff. He did a big old thread that was basically summarised some of the findings. And here's one of the findings, or the points that the report makes. If Mr. Morrison had suspected the NPP was misleading, I think that's the advice or the scheme, I think it probable that the last thing he would have done was refrain from speaking up in the hope of OCI being adopted without further delay or investigation. Sorry for all the technical acronyms or whatever. For, as a Member of Parliament and Minister of many years' standing, he would almost certainly have foreseen that, were he to do so, there would be a high chance of the deception soon being discovered, and of his and his government's subjection to the inevitably adverse political consequences that would follow. Rather than being a reason to suspect a dishonest failure to inquire, the fact that Mr. Morrison did not make further inquiries appears more probably consistent with him not having perceived there was a need to do so. He just didn't know. And Jeremy summarised that as, we don't believe Morrison would act dishonestly because he was a Member of Parliament for many years, is a very funny argument.
Oh, it's crazy.
These are our anti-corruption people. And they're like, oh yeah, politicians, they're all doing they're always doing the right thing.
Politician and honest, right? He's an honest politician.
Sounds like a bloody oxymoron to me. All right, let's bring in Michael the Griffin, who actually was in the media a little bit talking about this. People might know Mike's background as a robodebt victim. Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Feel free to sound off. How are you feeling about all this justice?
Well, I feel stupid, of course. I thought that Labor hated the Tories more than they hate, citizens, but they hate citizens more than Tories. Like, they couldn't even get justice against their villain enemy ScoMo because they're all in it together. So here's the thing, right? I don't know why it wasn't a bigger scandal, but in July 2022, so that's 2 months after the election, Richard Miles and Albo put Catherine Campbell into an AUKUS job, and for $1 million AUKUS job per year.
Yeah.
So she was the architect of robo-debt, and they'd announced they were going to do a royal commission they'd said they were going to do a royal commission. So knowing that she was going to be the star of the royal commission, they gave her $1 million promotion to an AUKUS job. Now, of course, from their point of view, that's keeping her quiet and stuff. But clearly they're not taking this seriously. Here's the thing. If there was never going to be any repercussions, I realize now, because if there were repercussions, if there were lawsuits, if there were charges laid, then inevitably the public dialogue would be, well, the DHS has to be reformed. And they're not going to do that. No way in hell will they touch the DHS. So they're not going to, there's no scalps. For instance, Theresa Rain, Kevin Rudd's wife, made $200 million on job network officers. Do you really think Labor's going to, fix the DHS? Of course they're not. So, yeah, this got me pretty jokified back in 2016. I wouldn't be on this podcast if it wasn't for it. That's what got me here. And I am so jokified. Like, I'm not sure if you saw those articles about there's a Guardian article about Labor MPs anonymously speaking to the Guardian that they think Albo's crazy, like mad with war power. But they spoke anonymously to the Guardian. Those cunts think they're Edward Snowden. That is how the fucking Labor machine works. These fucking losers will not stand up for anything. So write to your MP, call your MP, ask them why they did this, because the Nacc was set. If you wanted no repercussions, you would do what they've done. You would set up the Nacc the way they did. You'd work with the Liberals. You'd get him in charge. You get Brereton in charge. Brereton was mates, and he used to serve with Catherine Campbell. Like, every single step they've taken was designed for there to be no justice, because for the Labor idiots, the fucking cunts in Labor, they think that a royal commission is justice. I don't give a shit about a royal commission. I want the people who did this on purpose in jail. And also, one last thing, sorry. It's like, oh, well, I asked the public servant said, oh, well, it's legal. But then I don't understand. I realize that legally you need the courts to prove things, but the common sense means nothing. Like, data averaging, using data from January to March and applying that to the whole year, like, that's primary school logic. And shame on every Australian for not caring and for hating dole bludgers so much that you're willing to allow this crime to go on. Australia is a sick country. We've been perverted and poisoned by decades of filth about poor people. This is what happens. And Labor are literally in lockstep. The good thing about the last few weeks is I feel no shame whatsoever in saying Labor and Liberal are the same. And if anyone pushes me on that, they're going to hear about it because they are the same. So fuck you all. And anyone watching, I'm really sorry this happened, but Serious Danger agrees with you and we love you.
We do love you.
Sorry, I'm just ranty, but my God, 10 years of my life, man.
Yes, of course. I don't give a shit about their names. Michael Griffin, who provided Guardian Australia with the first clear evidence of income averaging back in 2016, and who is now a podcast producer for Serious Danger, said, thanks for the shout out.
Podcast mentioned.
Naming them is not justice in any sense whatsoever. It is completely meaningless to me as a victim. Yeah, I mean, I must say, so it seems to turn on whether Morrison was able to trust the advice from his department as to whether or not this was legal. And so he's fully vindicated, saying, it's up to the minister to trust the advice. The advice was wrong. If the advice was different, I would have done something differently. Seems to completely gloss over the absolute backing of the scheme, the gaslighting of everyone, the smearing of victims when they came forward, the attempts to silence any whistleblowers from within the department. Like, all of that is just completely glossed over. And he was just like, I was a helpless minister.
I mean, Malcolm Turnbull kept saying to the media that it is working as intended. He kept saying it's working as intended. By the way, Turnbull, who had nothing to do with robodebt, apparently, he said it's working as intended because he was the PM for 3 years. The fact that there was much stuff in the media meant nothing, but it would have meant something if the reason I'm so angry with Labor is they didn't fucking do anything for years. And if you say that, they'll be like, oh yeah, but we spoke about it in Parliament 3 times. That was like once a year. The public did it. People like Asher Wolf and Lindsay, they did it. They fixed it. And then Bill Shorten shows up and says, I did it. And then he lies about the Royal Commission. Sorry, can I just have one thing? Does anyone have any thoughts? I think we should do a movement called They Don't Deserve Your Labor. So it's about getting Labor volunteers and members to quit the party and withdraw their support, withdraw your volunteering, stop door knocking until they start following what you want. And it's called They Don't Deserve Your Labor. If anyone's interested in working on this, be in touch with me and let's do this.
A labor strike. I like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, labor strike. There we go. Great minds. I love it.
Just quickly as well, I think the National Anti-Corruption Commission was implemented by Labor, like following the 2022 election, in response to the whole robodebt scheme. And I think right now it's spent up to $140 million. And we've just had the outcome of, out of the 6 people, 2 have been found to have committed significant corruption, but nothing's going to happen. And so we've spent $140 million on what? Like what? What is the outcome?
Well, also, the reasoning here is They said that it wouldn't stand. We're not doing criminal charges because anything said in the private hearings to the Nacc is inadmissible to criminal prosecution. So I heard a legal expert frame it like this: the price we pay for compelling people to give evidence to the Nacc is that none of that evidence is admissible because, of course, you can't compel someone to testify, like to incriminate themselves, right? So these people go in, they give all this evidence, and then none of that they say can actually be used to then criminally prosecute them at the later date, which seems to be a pretty fundamental flaw in the whole fucking system.
When Labor were campaigning on bringing in the NACC, they said that they were going to make the hearings public, but of course when they got elected and they implemented it, they changed their minds. And now we can't have access to any of their statements because they've all been made private.
Yes, well, that was the Nacc's reasoning was saying that we don't think it was in the public interest to have a former prime minister talk about the robo-debt scandal.
I want to see it.
We're in the public and we're fucking interested.
The Labor bots who I'm increasingly convinced actually do exist, especially this last few weeks since the war started, you'll see a lot more Labor bots online, I've noticed. But staff is the main one. Labor staff is, but I've seen people blaming the Greens for this because they say that the Labor was forced to work with the LNP to do the weak Nacc because the Greens were unreasonable because the Greens wanted a stronger Nacc. And
it's the half bill all over again.
That's how their brains will do this. That's how they'll get out of this. If you wanted an advanced tip on how they will process this, it was Greens' fault. Yeah.
It's always somehow the Greens' fault.
Dude, I've had people tweeting me that the Greens are wedging Labor on the war in Iran. And I mean, do you mean we're asking them to stand up to live by their own principles? Is that what wedging is now? Jesus.
It's so telling when any Labor person says that. It's so telling. It's because they don't understand that principles are something that you could have. That's what they're saying.
Well,
they exist in a
wedged
world
means
without them.
Being wedged between the things you say and the things you do, right? Don't try and point out the things that we say, the things we do. That's wedging us, the poor little Labor in the middle, the real victim in all this. I mean, another crazy thing that stood out to me, this is from the Australian Public Services Commission, released its own report on robo-debt in 2024. Its scope was limited. 12 public servants had breached a workplace code of conduct 97 times. The report noted that those no longer working for the public service would need to declare the findings if asked for the next 5 years if they applied for any public service jobs or wanted contract work. Now, 6 of those people who were found to have breached the workplace code 97 times are still in the public service. This is the level of blowback that you get when you participate in a blatantly unlawful, devastating and evil scheme like robo-debt.
Yeah.
I would like to say that reading about this last night and reading about the report and everything, it's for people like Mike, it's 9 or 10 years of living in limbo, waiting for someone to do something, electing Labor on the promise that they're going to create this system, this corruption commission that's going to investigate it, the Royal Commission, millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars spent on this for nothing. It's like a virtue signal, and then it's a spit in the face. And my heart really breaks for the people who had to go through living through robo-debt. And obviously people really sadly lost their lives because of it. And it's heartbreaking and it feels pointless.
Mm. And again, whatever justice comes to, or lack of justice comes to, we come back to exactly the same system, a system that Labor is entirely embedded in, and that is the system of dehumanizing, of punishing people for their own poverty and unemployment, mutual obligations, poverty payments, keep people living below the poverty line. All of that system, that same system, which is what robo-debt inevitably grew out of. All of that remains and is fully supported by this Labor government. And until we do something about that, horrific shit like this is going to just keep on happening.
I mean, only a few weeks ago on the show, I was talking about how I was on rent assistance, and they do a measure where they check if you're living at the address by sending you a letter to the address, but they don't send you a digital record of that letter going. I didn't get the letter. They removed my rent assistance. And then I got it back. But the idea obviously is I can guarantee you that that's a measure that's left in place as an efficiency measure to try and save a little bit of money. And that's exactly this. And with robo-debt, I got a phone call from a debt collector because they'd sent a letter to at a previous address that I wasn't living at. So basically that's robo-debt, and it happened to me a month ago, and it's still happening. And people's rent assistance being taken away is arguably even worse than robo-debt because they need that to live immediately.
Yes.
And can I just say one thing also? Larissa, you're not going to get on the television unless you do this. The only way for us, if you want to actually help us, Larissa, get in front of a camera today and say Albo is a robo-cunt, because that will get you into the media. If you get in front of a microphone and say, this was wrong, it was illegal, then welcome to page 50. Get in front of a microphone and say Albo is a robo-cunt. And then you'll get on the news. Like, what is the downside? There is no downside. So you might even think I'm joking, but I'm not. Do it. Larissa, do it.
Well, she likes saying we'll get shit done. I think that might be as rude as she's prepared to go. But we'll see if RoboCut happens. Anyway, love and solidarity to you, Mike, and to all the victims of Robodebt. And thank you to all the advocates, the people, the tireless activists out there who've spent so much time, sweat and energy, probably losing their minds in the process. I am so sorry that this is the result of justice that we've come to at the end of this process. But yes, I mean, please be safe in the knowledge that you were absolutely right. This is absolutely wrong. And we got to fight for something better.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
What went wrong? I'm kicking out fiercely at the world around me. What went wrong? I'm kicking.
I reckon Robodebt is like Doge before Doge.
Pretty much, isn't it? Well, yeah, it's all the same logic, yeah.
Mm.
All right. Last story I wanted to talk to you about, Elise, is the Liberal Party election review. Before we get into that, of course, we should acknowledge RIP David Littleproud stepped down as the leader of the Nationals this week. We have a new Nationals leader just dropped, Matt Canavan, finally taking on the crown. What do you think about this? Are you excited about Matt Canavan and Angus Taylor, the dream team?
That was a roller coaster. I had such whiplash seeing David Littleproud giving the press conference, crying next to his wife. And I don't know if you saw it the next day, the video footage of him whistling and clicking his fingers down the hallway of Parliament. And then in front of the cameras, he's like, I feel great. I feel alive. This guy's just come in. He's chucked a hissy fit. He's tantruming on the floor. He's broken up the coalition twice. He got the first female leader of the Liberal Party thrown out. And then he's like, you know what? Just feel a bit sleepy. Just a bit tired. And that's okay. You can be a bit tired. But then the next day to rub it in and
I'm feeling great. Well, he's not.
That's it.
It is pretty crazy. He's not leaving Parliament, is it? He's staying at his seat. He's going to hang around in the Nationals, but he's just handed over the leadership.
What do you think about Matt Canavan's election as leader of the Nationals?
I think he's cool and great. Who cares? I don't know. He's probably more. What do I think? I think he's probably has more cut through, I suppose, than David Littleproud does in terms of just like having a bit more passion for what he believes in is my general read. But
he is ideologically driven for sure.
Yes, but he's definitely further to the right and is definitely interested in tearing or bringing the coalition and Liberal Party to the right. I think he's very much of the view that it's like there's no appealing to the centre and we can't be Labor light. I think that seems to be Matt Canavan's guiding ideology, which I think is electoral suicide, which is good for the country. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good for us that the coalition stays in shambles. Maybe as a senator, he's thinking more about the Senate rather than the House of Representatives. Where in the House of Representatives, if you look at the seats, there's politically there's two seats politically more right-wing than the Liberal National Coalition. And that's one Nation seat and then a Bob Katter seat. But the One Nation seat is just Barnaby Joyce, who defected from the Nationals. I don't know how they're trying to appeal to two seats, how they think that is the go. And so it must be to get power in the Senate. They want to win over that right wing in the Senate so that they then have more of a sway. But in doing that, they're going to lose a significant chunk of their more moderate Liberal voter base. So I don't understand. It baffles me, this one.
Well, they probably do think they can get a decent number of defections. They can build up their parliamentary presence through defections from people in the coalition who are unhappy, who think the future is one nation, who can just take all their resources between now and the next election. I mean, there's rumours that Alex Antic is pretty soon going to jump ship and head to One Nation, for example. Like getting a few of those defections would build it up as like they'd achieve sort of party status and get more resources pretty quickly just through those defections. So that could be part of their strategy. But of course, I don't know. In his first press conference, Matt Canavan both talking about more Australian babies, but also sort of trying to attack One Nation or trying to differentiate between attacking Pauline Hanson's One Nation's politics for being divisive, which is pretty funny.
Obviously, no ideological difference between the two of them, though. That was bizarre as well. The whole thing's baffling to me. As one of the major two parties, I'm saying the Nationals and Liberal coalition is like one of the major two. I don't understand how they ever plan to get back into power ever again. It's like they've conceded and they just want to go to the Senate because they're never going to win power if they just alienate the more moderate base. Obviously, in Australia, we have mandatory preferential voting, which keeps the whole of our parliament fairly moderate and fairly sort of centrist aligned. That if you start to appeal to the extremes, you're just going to lose that centre voter base and become an extremist minority party.
Well, that sounds like the talk of someone who's read the Liberal Party election review, which I have not spent too much time on. I know they tried to shelve it, which I thought was very funny. They said, we're not going to publish this. We appreciate the review. We think it's great, but we're not going to publish it. Then it got leaked. Then eventually Anthony Albanese tabled it in Parliament, which I got to say, pretty impressive, funny troll move there from the Prime Minister. But also a good thing to keep in mind whenever you hear about Labor complaining about the Greens political party doing stunts in Parliament. You've read the whole thing, is that right?
I have read the whole thing front to back. It was fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot. We've got they quoted Timu Trump and Voldemort as specific insults lobbied at Peter Dutton. They said that it was Labor that came up with those insults, but I don't believe it was. I think they've got that wrong.
Well, I think Amy Ramikis is credited with Timu Trump, isn't she? Or at least popularized it. I think she's definitely
popularized it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It felt vindictive for the Liberal Party towards Peter Dutton. You can understand why he threatened to sue them for defamation because it was personal, like very personal towards him. It was a real joy to read, though.
Well, what I got the quote here. The electorate expects to see and hear an upbeat and inspiring leader, the review said. All of that was lacking, and the leader's grim and introverted demeanour, clothed in the ubiquitous suit, whatever the occasion, did not change during the campaign and perhaps reflected the heavy and additional burden he imposed on himself. Having fashioned a hard-man image throughout his political career, the review described Dutton as unattractive to women, so much so that some female candidates asked for him not to visit their electorates. He was also viewed as lacking connection with younger voters. Is that kind of the worst of it?
I think lacking connection with younger voters is understating it. The campaign review found that 73.2% of the Gen Z voter base, that's 18 to 34-year-olds, 73.2% voted for Labor in a two-party preferred outcome.
Wow.
Is like the most significant demographic variation within the report that like we can talk about them not being appealing to women. I think the voting gap for women versus men was 4.2%, but generationally it was incredibly significant. They've just lost young people.
Right. The Trump factor is in there too. I thought this was pretty great. Mr. Dutton's Trump-like policies proved deeply unpopular, including the decision to cut 40,000 public service jobs, the creation of a government efficiency portfolio, and the abolition of work from home for the public service. The comparisons to an increasingly unpopular Donald Trump required a nimble and flexible response from Mr. Dutton and an emphatic demonstration there was no similarity between the two. Which I just love that it's like this guy needed to think quickly and sort of dismiss it. And he also needed to lie harder. He needed to tell better lies about how he doesn't like Donald Trump and there's nothing similar between Peter Dutton and Donald Trump. I thought that was really great advice from the review.
I do think he took the Donald Trump likeness on board, but I think he did it in the wrong way. Because a big part of the campaign review was saying that putting the blame on Peter Dutton himself for like divorcing himself from the campaign headquarters committee, the one that is meant to guide the party through the election campaign, tell them what policies they're announcing, where and when. And he just decided, you know what, I'm going to do it all on my own. You guys don't know what you're doing. But in doing so, he just made a complete idiot of himself. For example, in the report, they cited he went to Tasmania on a whim. It wasn't in his plan, flew to Tasmania and decided to announce a $20 million package specifically for New South Wales on a domestic violence issue. It was like domestic violence funding. And they had, and I've got to quote this, they quote, "It is unlikely this won a single vote," which I think is absolutely fantastic. He decided to just go full Don Quixote on his own way and completely ruin at a policy announcement. Nothing for Tasmania there. Didn't get to announce it in New South Wales. I think it's just very Trumpy is that he decided that he was the guy, he knew what to do, he took charge and then destroyed the entire thing.
Which is there much discussion in there about the fact that, because there was a point where it, at least the polling was very positive towards the end of 2024. Cost of living was really hurting and the government wasn't doing great, and there certainly was riding high, and we were all freaking out. We're going, Jesus Christ, is Peter Dutton going to be the next Prime Minister of this country? And then, to Labor's credit, somewhat, they certainly turned it around at the start of the year, right?
I don't even know if it's to Labor's credit, to be honest. I feel like a lot of it was in the lead up to Trump getting elected. Very sort of like the general global and maybe like national idea was that Trump was hip, Trump was back. But then when he got in and those executive orders that he put through in January, it just freaked everyone out. We're like, oh, we're in for a long 4 years of America. I think Australia saw that and they were like, actually, we really don't want you.
You're Trump, like, we need a nimble response to this, a nimble and flexible response, and we need an emphatic demonstration there are no similarities between you and this guy that we hate. And Dutton was like, here's my friend Jacinta Namatjima-Price, who's currently wearing a Make Australia Great Again cap. Pretty cool.
And then they asked her if she supported MAGA, and she says, I don't know what that is.
All right, you're either lying or very stupid.
They did cite the polls in the review, but they cited it as they relied really heavily on one pollster, which overinflated the popularity of the Liberal Party after the Voice campaign or the Voice referendum failed. And then they blamed the pollster for that, and then they sort of blamed themselves for relying too much on the pollster. They thought that Peter Dutton was more popular because he managed to stop a referendum from going through, but also we've had 45 referendums in the country. Only 8 have gone through. Of those 8, 7 of them had bipartisan support. Only one managed to get through without bipartisan support. And that was one for like social services. It was in 1942. It's not that hard to stop a referendum from getting through. You basically just have to oppose it.
Yeah. Yes, they certainly got high on the smell of their own farts on that particular front, and realizing that there was obviously a collapse in like Labor support. People who liked Labor who voted no for the Voice referendum. That didn't affect their voting no to the Voice. As depressing as that wasn't an indication that they hate the Labor government necessarily. They were able to differentiate that between other considerations a couple of years later.
Yeah.
What are some other nuggets in there? I saw the video that you've sort of posted about it, or at least an extract from your Twitch stream was talking about the way they talked about women being too dumb to understand nuclear energy.
Oh, so they don't mention in their nuclear part anything about climate change, but they dance around the whole idea, where they say that they were they acknowledge that they were hemorrhaging votes to the Teal independents. And when they talk about nuclear, they say that the females disliked nuclear because they were, quote, worried about nuclear safety, end quote. There's no mention of climate change, no acknowledgement that the people who they did lose the votes to that were voting for the Teals, the party that stands on climate change, climate science, and women, care about climate change and don't want nuclear because not necessarily it's unsafe. I think people understand that it's relatively fairly safe, but the time that we've wasted umming and ahhing about nuclear and the time it would take to implement it, not to mention the ridiculous cost that we still don't even know, it would exacerbate the climate crisis so much more. But they've gone, women think it's unsafe. We just need to educate them more. If we just educate them, then they'll come back to us.
As they do their ironing across this country. I mean, the major takeaway I've seen from some Liberal MPs is that, a big mistake with the nuclear policy is it would be government owned. That's the problem. We should have said, no, we absolutely let the free market build these massive nuclear projects, which is also never going to happen.
See if the free market does it. I don't care.
Well, then they still want, it sounds like the coalition, the Nationals and Liberals still want to repeal the moratorium on mining uranium, right? I'm pretty sure that's still policy, or at least after the review, that's where the Nationals are at. They're certainly like, okay, we lost that argument, but a coalition government would definitely repeal that moratorium.
Well, I think, Angus Taylor's come out saying that he's still in support of a nuclear energy first, and then obviously Matt Canavan being all fossil fuel simping and all that.
Was there anything in the review about the net zero policy and whether that was a political liability, because that's the thing they've all dumped. That was their big takeaway for the election, is like to dump net zero as a policy. Does the review mention that at all?
Not that I can recall. Honestly, I was quite taken aback because from my understanding, my memory might be a bit foggy, but looking at a lot of polls throughout the election, asking people what they cared about most, coming up to the election, it was the housing crisis, the cost of living crisis, and climate change. And there was barely any mention of climate change. I think at one point they just called it like I can't remember the wording that they used, but they really fobbed it off.
Right.
They don't mention their net zero policy. I think I don't know, they've got their own propaganda going on within the report. They're just telling themselves that it doesn't matter and people don't care about it and they just don't understand, which I find particularly quite condescending.
Yes.
Because we know that the people that vote for the teal independents, the ones that the Liberal Party are hemorrhaging votes to, we know that they're relatively in educated, wealthy neighborhoods. And so to say that we don't understand nuclear because we're not educated enough is completely missing the point as to why they've lost their votes.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, one of the co-authors of this report is Nick Minchin, who is like one of the leading climate science deniers when he was in government under Howard. Like he was out there. Prue Goward, I suppose, is slightly more moderate, though she wrote that truly atrocious opinion piece about poor people for the AFR, which we've talked about on the show before. But yeah, Nick Minchin is like, was fully against Kyoto, was fully against any kind of carbon tax or price or whatever you like, just does not believe that that human activity is heating the planet. So perhaps that's not too surprising.
Yeah, so he's just writing this through his own view of the climate conspiracy.
I didn't even think he was that respected a member of the party that he would sort of get this gig of writing the review. But anyway, I mean, like, again, reading some of the summaries and sort of like the takeaways, it seems like an overwhelming focus on anything but policy. On Peter Dutton, on Trump, on the bad polling they got, on lack of communication between the head of the party headquarters and Dutton himself. And I'm not saying these aren't factors, and it's interesting, I suppose, to go through there and see how they affected election campaign, which proved to be a total disaster. But is there much sort of bigger questions about the ideological offering or the story that the Liberal Party brings, or like what were the great policies that we had, or do people just look at the policies that they've presented, they understand these policies, and they do not like them because they do not think they will make their lives better?
They don't believe that people understand their policies. They think, like, the big overarching one is we just need to educate people more on what our policies are, then they'll vote for us. They don't think that they need to win people over. They need to convince them somehow that what they are saying is right. They're aging is a big one. They know that they're aging. They know that their voter base is getting away from them. And we can see that reflected in the 73% of Gen Z voting for the Labor Party in a two-party preferred. They don't offer any advice in the report for how to overcome that. They don't know how to overcome that. And I imagine that's because it's like a catch-22. There's no young people in their party, in their staff that know how to get them back. They're just sort of withering away. I did want to bring up, they did significantly, they mentioned the Plymouth Brethren harassment as a point in their report for something that may have cost them some votes. And I don't know if you heard about the Plymouth Brethren harassment. I didn't know about it until I was reading the report, and so I looked it up. And they didn't have enough staff to run their booths. A lot of their staff, they acknowledged, were older, and so they couldn't get out there. So what they did instead was they got the Plymouth Brethren to come along in mobs to hand out flyers. But the Plymouth Brethren would come, there'd be like 30 or 40 of them. They would get the flyers, and they were allegedly like hitting people with the flyers if they weren't taking the flyers and chasing them away. And they were doing this at multiple different electorate voting booths and just scaring people. And they acknowledged that they should never get the Plymouth Brethren to come along again, but they don't have, in lesser words, but they don't have anyone else to run their booths.
Right. We need to find another cult that is a bit more political nous about how to engage with voters out there. Yeah, I mean, don't they preach that people shouldn't vote as well within their own church? That was also fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was their way to contribute, though. That was their way to get around it, was to go out and hand out polling things. So they can't vote, but they can go out and hand out how to vote cards or hit people across the head with them.
Yes, get the heathens involved. All right, I want to wrap up here and just briefly touch on this Greens review. But I mean, I suppose obviously they didn't publish the review. Do you see any evidence of the party listening to anything in the review or reflecting on why they lost? Because again, of course, since that review, we've got this female leader for 9 months. She was dumped. Now we've got 2 members of the hard right of the Liberals and the Nationals in leadership positions. Tim Wilson is now shadow treasurer or whatever, allegedly a moderate, the only one who won her seat back off Teal. That seems to be a recipe for disaster to me. That just is, it's just inevitably going to implode as far as I can see. But yeah, what do you see the Liberal Party taking any advice from this much maligned review and reflecting and using it for any kind of electoral success in the future?
I mean, their actions and what they've done so far indicates to me no. I think a big problem that they had was the woman problem, but that's a problem that the Liberal Party have had in multiple elections. They acknowledged it during ScoMo's loss as well, that he had a problem with women. He very notoriously had a problem with women. They've acknowledged in their report that quotas aren't going to work or quotas wouldn't have worked because they did have multiple competent moderate women in some electorates who didn't get elected. And I think at the time, Labor campaigning against those moderate women ended up using signs like, one, for example, was in Tasmania against Bridget Archer. And it said, sadly, a vote for Bridget Archer is a vote for Peter Dutton. And so it doesn't matter if you have competent women, it's about your party and its ideology as a whole. People don't see you as someone that cares for women or the things that women care about. So I don't know. I thought maybe they would elect Bridget McKenzie into the Nationals leadership position. And I think that at least aesthetically as a woman leader of the Nationals, that might do something, but I can't see them ever winning that one. I don't know.
Great. I mean, it just seems like they're going to dive into the immigration debate as hard as possible and crank up the xenophobia and the racism. They'll hang on to that as much as they can, which will be yet another fight. And, Labor, of course, is not exactly going to present a staunch resistance to that. So that will fall on the Greens. Speaking of, there was a piece in the conversation called The Greens Election Review Flew Under the Radar. Here's what it said, basically saying, hey, everyone's talking about a Liberal election review. The Greens did one too, you guys. And apparently this came out 3 months after the election. I completely missed it. We didn't talk about it on the show. And it's worth a read, if nothing else. Yeah. I think a lot of it will be familiar territory that we've talked about as like reasons as to why the Greens lost the seats that they did, even though the primary vote nationally was pretty much the same. The collapsing Liberal vote, redistributions, these are considerations, the nature of three-way contests and the sort of small margins and the way that those margins were laid out, particularly in the seats in Brisbane, as to why we lost it. But I thought this was interesting. The report also identified numerous challenges that harmed the party, particularly when it came to retaining and winning new seats in the lower house. This included significant shifts in the nature of the campaign over its duration, most prominently the increased anti-Trump sentiment, leading to Labor also running hard on a keep Dutton out message. Changes in Greens voter demographics, including a decline in support from young men, particularly in target seats. Challenges differentiating themselves from Labor. Climate and the environment not featuring prominently on the agenda, which I think is pretty true. Difficulties retaining and winning new lower house seats. The role of third parties, citing attacks from groups such as Advance. I don't know. What did you have thoughts about this particular article and this apparently election review, this evaluation of why the Greens didn't do so great in 2025?
I mean, I don't think any of it is surprising. It was pretty much exactly what I saw people theorizing after the election. We had the redistribution in the Melbourne electorate where Adam Bandt lost. There was pretty much negligible loss of primary voting for the Greens. Obviously, the three-party Liberal, Labor, Greens in Queensland for Max Chandler Mather, and how if Labor perform better, then it's between the Greens and Labor, which means that Labor's going to win. If Liberals perform better, then it's between Liberals and Greens, which means that the Greens are going to win off of the preferences of Labor. A lot of it sort of feels very self-explanatory. I don't really know what the Greens could do. I think it is a good question, though, actually. What do you think the Greens could do to overcome those challenges?
Sorry, another point to make from this article is that the review found that despite what you will hear in the media and the instant takes from all the political pundits, the idea that the Greens unequivocally taking a position in support of Palestine as itself as a genocide and its focus on cost of living stuff and housing were not detriments to did not lose us votes, was basically the summary of that. I mean, the most interesting bit that I got out of this was towards the end of the article, which is sort of looked at like what this author thought was missing in the review. And he wrote this: finally, while the Greens benefited from the element of surprise when they won a swathe of lower house seats in 2022, this falls away with incumbency. This means others, both political parties and third parties, can counter them by developing more effective campaigns that learn from their success. This is what played out in Queensland in 2024 when Labor effectively adopted green light policies such as 50-cent public transport fares and emulated the Greens' volunteer-driven door-knocking methods. Although Labor lost this election, this strategy helped them regain South Brisbane and hold off further Green challenges in surrounding seats, which I thought was quite a good point. And I think Emerald would endorse that analysis and would sort of say that, yes, this is certainly true. And Labor is reacting to the success of the Greens campaign strategies in those particular seats, right? Like, yeah, and we should be prepared for that. If we start winning seats by having volunteer-driven door-knocking campaigns that are really at a grassroots community level, don't be surprised when other parties, particularly Labor, which is also traditionally relied on people-powered campaigns, or at least have an idea of how to do that through union organising and such, might use those same strategies to win those seats back, you know?
I mean, it is very typical of Labor to sort of chameleon itself to what is popular on both sides. You know, you've got what is popular with the Greens, what is popular with the Liberals. You can expect the Labor Party to adopt whatever those two are doing to try and, you know, punch to the left and punch to the right.
Right.
So it's not really surprising that they would do that. I think you might upset a couple of political pundits when you say that Labor is stealing ideas from the Greens. I've heard the opposite sentiment from certain friendly journalists, especially when it comes to like the HAF and stuff.
God. Look, I thought the best summary, and if I could just read out another tweet to round out a conversation. This is from Horrible Lizard, summarising the political parties in Australia thusly. LNP, let's give it up for the inanimate carbon rod. ALP, we are quietly concerned about the things we continue to do. Greens, we're aiming for 16%. Pauline Hanson's One Nation, what do you call it oven when you off in cold food, off out eat, hot eat the food? Currently polling 88% nationally. I mean, where's the lie, Horrible Lizard? Where's the lie?
That is a good summary. I heard her on the Carl Stefanovich podcast saying that she's organised with her staff that if she ever starts to sound like Joe Biden, to tap her on the shoulder and get her to retire. So
Jesus.
Maybe that's coming soon.
Tap now.
Tap now.
Ashby,
tap
or whatever your name is, James Ashby. Tap. Elise Turnbull, thank you so much. It's been delightful talking to you. Thank you for your analysis and talking us through these big stories of the week. There's a lot going on. We appreciate it. Where can people go if they want to find your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitch. I'm twitch.tv/Elise, Elise. I'm on Instagram, elise.fm. I've also got TikTok, but I can't remember the username right this second. You can find me there. I stream multiple times throughout the week. I am learning about whatever I want to be learning at the time. Mostly Australian politics, sometimes global, sometimes I'm doing the nutbush for 4 hours.
Are you working on are you going for a new record? Is the next one on your list?
I did want to go for the most pairs of underwear worn at one time, but I couldn't find a sponsor to send me 300 pairs of big underwear. So if anyone out there has 300 pairs of underwear, I'm looking.
What a strange request. All right. Thank you, Elise. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.